Good day, everybody. It's wonderful to be back with you on Hospitality Talks. I'm Abbott Butt. We've got a wonderful panel today and a great discussion lined up for you. Travelers around the world are gravitating to unique lodging accommodations. It's been talked about over and over and over again. As a result of this, the boutique hotel scene is thriving. There is no specific definition for boutique or, for that matter, lifestyle hotels, and no one can agree exactly what constitutes these brands. Some of the common characteristics, though, of this genre are small size, local focus, individuality, design, gastronomy. These labels, though, are loosely used and not really understood by the industry or by the client base. As a result, it could lead to diluting the meaning and the message in the hospitality industry. We will discuss with our panel the dilemma about boutique hotels, why people love them, what is the future for this genre. Glad to be here with you, and I'm here with my co-host, Sam-Erik. Sam.
Well, thank you, Abid. I'm really excited about this pre-Easter show, and I feel like it's like walking into a jewelry store because you're having these very specific, very well-known brands, and depending on what kind of budget you have, what kind of jewelry you're looking for, you can choose, pick and choose there. This is in comparison to the supermarket version where you have companies that has 25, 30 brands and you don't really know where you are with them. But I think if you heard the name of some of the brands that we are talking with today, you are getting an image about them. And I think that's what makes, if I may say so, makes the edge for the boutique hotel brand, that you have a vision and an image about them if you heard them about them once before. And also if you look at their logo, and just how they have positioned themselves in the social media. Just go to Instagram and look at any of these three brands, and you will get the feeling about their personality. So I'm very excited about this discussion. I'm very looking forward to see about what's happening. We know what happened before, but we'd like to know what happens now and hopefully in the future.
Well, Sam-Erik, your analogy is spot on. The jewelry store versus a supermarket. So I think our panelists would really help us better understand.
Absolutely.
So if it's okay, let's bring everybody in, and I'll do a very brief introduction at this particular point. Our first guest has a long-standing career in hospitality, particularly in luxury segment. Currently leads the super luxury brand of AMAN. AMAN recently celebrated 30 years of operation and an extensive growth plan. Welcome, Roland Fasel. Glad to have you with us.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Our second guest, after holding leading roles in several international brands, Alexander heads up the Global Hotel and Resort Division for Nikki Beach as president. It's one of the strongest brands for food and beverage and entertainment, born in Miami about 20 years ago, and great plans for the future. Alexander Schneider, glad to have you with us.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you today.
And last but certainly not least, in 2005, nearly 15 years ago, Christoph Hoffman and his partners founded the 25-Hour Hotel Company. It develops and operates unique hotels in metropolitan destinations. In fall of 2016, 25 Hours Hotel Company announced its strategic alliance with Accor Hotels and is now pursuing hotel projects around the globe. And we're very glad that Christoph is able to join us. Christoph, welcome to Hospitality Talks.
Thank you.
So, if it's okay, Roland, we will start with you.
Okay.
Tell us what the 2020 was like. You obviously heads up a luxury brand, predominantly resort portfolio. The world at one point was at a cliff's edge because of the government regulations, shutdowns. Did your resorts continue to operate, and were you continuously welcoming the guests, or did you have some hotels that were shut down as well?
Well, obviously, the first quarter we were still in the race pretty much, and had actually anticipated really to come together and really have the year of all years. Then all the work which was done the previous 4 or 5 years, I felt that 2020 will really be a consolidation. Then we also have anticipated New York to open and so forth. So unfortunately, we then very quickly in March, April got into a very reactive mode, crisis mode. Yes, we obviously don't forget I'm an operator, and then I still have also our own 16 hotels, correct? So I have it all under the umbrella of AMAN. So I don't have a propco, opco kind of a context. So I own and I manage. So to make the story quite quickly clear. I mean, we went very quickly in a very aggressive, reactive mode, and obviously the operations were to the majority of the hotels closed down for a few months. Some of them we went down to all, to a point where closing or keeping it open with all the government support were about the same numbers. So we kind of vegetated there for a few months, but then business started to come back, particularly in America. Business then came back when things opened up in the summer in some of the pockets of the world. Everywhere we had a local market was able to convert my entire. Don't forget, I had to replace like 35% of my American business across the portfolio. So I switched very quickly to a more local, regional focused business, which then we came back in, as I said, in pockets of it. Like China, we had the best year ever in 2020. Philippines, best year in most likely ever. America, best year, ended up best year in as well, and continues into 2021. So to answer your question, yes, we were winding down some of them. We operated some of them on the minimum with all the government support we could, and then we regrouped and actually came out still about 55-60% less in revenue, and about the same number in profit, down to 2019, which was our best year.
So, Roland, a luxury brand, a super luxury brand, operating with a precipitous drop in business and trying to contain costs. What was that like? I know every company in the world have had to adjust. How did AMAN adjust to the drop in business, and what was it that you had to do differently?
Well, obviously, you have the cost elements you need to look at. I mean, from the labor, the government schemes. Every country has a different scheme, has a different support mechanism. So you optimize that first and foremost. You renegotiate every piece of every contract, every opportunity you have. We obviously became, over the last 4 or 5 years, quite a financially focused company. That's obviously the big steps in the cycle we are in. So I had a very quickly a pause on where my opportunities were, and then we had to cut. But of course, I tried to minimize compromise on product, compromise on the service proposition and service promise. But no, we make some of the people redundant. I would not shy away to make the difficult decisions. I looked at my head office and streamlined that. So no, I think we kind of want to operate like any other brand and any other business would have wanted to stay alive. don't forget that, as I say, our own hotels. So I couldn't just walk away, and I had to fuel those hotels and had high burning rates in the hotels I own. So yeah, no, we had to react quite aggressively with great focus, with great determination. I mean, was a situation where I couldn't go to a sovereignty fund, I couldn't go to private equity and get incremental cash. It was us who had to keep this all afloat, us who kept this alive, and obviously we did what needed to be done in order to stay afloat.
Fair enough. It has been a very tough year for everybody, but particularly for travel and tourism and hospitality industry. So let's look forward. Talk a little bit about what the current year 21 looks like for you. Hopefully all resorts are open, and the market that you cater to, hopefully they are back visiting with you in your resorts. But talk a bit about what 2021 is like and what the future looks like for AMAN.
No, listen, I think it gave me a real opportunity to get back to the DNA of AMAN and what AMAN stands for, and really leverage that again in the story, correct? And we have been, part of this experiential piece for over 30 years. We have the most amazing destinations out there. We have, 14 hotels associated with UNESCO sites, and our product, other than the ones which we now have built in the cities, have social distancing literally part of the brand pillars. So and obviously, as we've been able to focus on local and regional markets, I can see that the product I have, the proposition I have, the size of the rooms or the pavilions or the gazebos I have, the destination are isolated, there's enough space, caters to what the customer is looking for today. And where there is access and where I can create access with private planes, or even in Jakarta, I ended up leasing a train who is moving people between Jakarta and Yogyakarta into Amanchivo. So with a little bit of creativity and innovation, I was able to give access to the local market, and with that we were able to recover quite a bit. Right now, based on today's March numbers, I would say I will make budget, whatever that means, but it would be getting very close in certain hotels to 2019 numbers. As a company, I will be still short maybe 15% in profits and EBITDA as a company to 2019 numbers. So I see 21 as a recovery, regrouping, refocus, rebooting, re-energizing, and refocusing. And 2022, with then New York also kicking in latter part of 21, I think will be a brilliant year for us.
Fabulous. Roland, any particular initiatives that you launched company-wide, whether it was relative to different technologies, different services, anything that you have been able to launch over the last year or so that is new, that possibly this downturn gave you an opportunity to roll out company-wide?
Yeah, I mean that's a very good question. I mean, regardless of the business being a challenge, obviously I stayed wherever I could, quite faithful to my mid to long term strategy in regards of where I want to go as a brand, correct? So I launched obviously the spa products and my own spa products. I launched my Chinese medicine line. We have our own retail collection now. I have my own components like that, which are all my own plane now. So all these verticals gave me an opportunity to accelerate, to implement all these verticals. They're not white labels. All this stuff is developed by brand. by my brands, by our creative people. And yes, some of them we like the retail collection obviously had to go outside to get it produced and manufactured. But ultimately, I also brought in regards of technology. I stay focused that we introduced a new website. I'm driving very, very aggressively my digital strategy. I have now a business intelligent platform. I have most of my financial systems in the Sun system, so I can have it fully integrated across the globe in the 33 hotels. So I perpetually drive those initiatives, and I haven't really changed my approach to that. Then obviously we are a brand, we want to be even a stronger brand, and all these verticals only help in the brand equity. Plus obviously the technology side, the digital side is where the business is going to come for in the mid to near future. So that stuff I've really been driving, and I think we've made quantum leaps in that regard over the last 12-14 months.
Roland, one more question before I turn it over to Sam-Erik. Talk a little bit about the business acquisition side of things. How has that evolved over a period of time? You just mentioned that you've launched a new website. Are there different channels that your guests are using to connect with you? Is the business acquisition changed over the last 5 years, let's say?
Yeah. Listen, I mean, we're all driving direct, correct, without obviously trying to compromise our consortia and our partners out there. But yeah, of course, I mean, the direct channels is where it's at. The social media, and in the world of social media, we have made quantum leaps. If you look at my assets on Instagram and Facebook and so forth, I mean, they're all on the highest quality. All these things I've been able to create the awareness, which then hopefully drives people to come to my direct channels in order to convert them into business. My numbers are staggering. I mean, I'm already up to about 46% of the business that comes directly. I have over 58% of the business that comes through my website is from people between 25 and 44 years old. So it's quite a phenomenon what has been pushed through over the last few years, and particularly the last 14 months.
The saying of Instagrammable hotel, well, your entire portfolio could fit that, because every hotel that you go to, obviously there are stunning shots that not only you obviously have published, but your guests produce that. So it's great to hear that you're able to connect with your guests directly, and they are really responding. Well, let me turn it over to Sam-Erik here for a few minutes, and I'll be back with you in a second. Sam.
Well, thank you. I thought I'd just mention before I ask the question, we have one of the viewers says, "Thank you for your positive future and picture and experience." So this is a comment to you, Roland. So very much enjoying you're enjoying this discussion. One thing which has I had the opportunity to visit several AMAN properties, unfortunately not stayed, but I had a chance to visit the Bali, Phuket, and the Morocco. And one thing which struck me is that your hotels traditionally are very low key counts, but of course with a very generous spaces. How does it work? I mean, also the staffing is that you don't have a fixed breakfast time. I guess it's according to the guest wishes when they wish to have something, and they are taken care of. But how does this work from the investment point of view of having a low key count, and then of course the rates are where they're supposed to be, but how does it work in practicality to manage sort of the profitability of these kind of hotels that you're managing and owning?
Well, it's obviously a very good question. I mean, listen, over the last 4 or 5 years since the new ownership, obviously our company has moved from a myth into a business. Yeah, and I mean, we increased profitability in the hotels by 93% over the last 5 years. Yeah, that has to be. So we look at this as a business. Now, of course, the upfront in investment is quite significant. Then you have smaller room counts, you have big rooms. The average is about, the smallest room in the business is about 65, 70 square meters in New York. The rest is even bigger. So obviously with that, you only have a certain amount of rooms you can put into either the buildings or in certain hotels. But, you know, we do run, even in Tokyo, I run a RevPAR with 100% premium. And if all of a sudden you run, you know, 2,000, 2,100 rates, and you run 80, 85% across, then you are looking at this like a business. I think there is quite, I mean, it's quite good returns possible. Let me put it that way. I think if you look at AMAN today, the one in Utah, I mean, it's today the most sought after hotel, I guess, in the US. It runs way over 2,000 average rates. So the business model actually works, but you need to run it like a business. Yeah. It's the times where we're not optimizing the channels or optimizing the businesses, or have to make this tough decision when tough decisions have to be made are over. I mean, I have to open the, or I want to admit to that. We run it as a business, but, you know, ultimately in the field, and the channel manager, which are the custodian of our brand in essence, then they really have to play the business side of it at the same time. You know, they are my hosts, correct? I mean, the channel managers is where it's really at, correct? Then, I mean, the channel managers are also the ones who really get little procedures, really little policies around guest engagement, guest experiences. I mean, I still really run the business up front with two statements that you welcome the guests like you would welcome them to your house, and, you know, guests arrive as guests and they leave as friends. And everything in between, the general manager still has the freedom to do what needs to be done to deliver the experiences, to deliver the extra touches, the intuitiveness. And I think we have been able to even run a business on those kind of basic promises. So to your answer, I got a little bit lost, but to answer your question, it is a business model today which works.
Yeah.
Don't forget, I mean, most of the hotels today, and many of the ones in the past, all have residential components to it, correct? Then the key is that you sell your branded resi, and with that, obviously, you can have a little bit of a more smaller room count and a little bit more sophistication in the hotels.
Well, I was looking for that answer because I know there are people who are asking me about AMAN, and I say, well, you know, I admire the brand, and I know that somehow they have made it work very well. That they, particularly, I remember from your Phuket property where you had residences also. So I said they must have sold these residences, and the developer or investors have made some money here, so to justify to have this fantastic experience to go along with it. So maybe that's where the balancing act is. And I think, is it true that in New York you will also have residences, which I will also looked up?
20 residences in New York on 57th and 5th. And again, that particular hotel is hopefully going to redefine some aspects of our business. But yes, that mall, it's a 1.3 billion project for 83 hotel rooms and 20 residences. So we better sell those residences. If not, there will be a lot of pressure for sure. We own, and that's where we own the real estate, and we own obviously the management company which operates the building. But yes, the resident piece, all the 11s which are either under construction, financed and ready to go, all of them have residential components to it right now.
Yeah. You have a second brand also launched, and I don't know anything about it, so I'm curious about. Is it called Janu or Yanu?
Yeah, Janu means soul, life. There are hotels still in the luxury space. You know, the room size is a bit smaller, but it's all about rethinking your balance. It's all about rethinking where you are in your life and what you need. So it is a little bit. If you look at a chart, on one hand you have the AMAN and some of our AMAN competitors, and then on the other hand you have like the Soho houses and the lifestyle brands. And in the middle of that chart is actually nobody who claims that space, right? So we have substance already in the brand. I have 3 signed up, 2 under construction. We will launch most likely in Tokyo or Montenegro first, but it looks like Tokyo is going to come up first. So again, it will compete in the $500-600 range. We'll compete obviously with other luxury brands. It will have much more activities, much more food and beverage, and as I said, much more energetic around, try to find your tribe, try to find your community. But at the same time, if you want to do your spiritual journey, if you want to have your peace, you can do that as well.
Very good. Now, my final question before I hand over to Abid is the technology or the tech. You touched it on already. I mean, if 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, when hotel companies were formed or brands, there was no discussion about technology. And now, if you would start a company today, I think you would have all kinds of positions which nobody heard of, which are not clearly focusing on the guest experience, but they are the ones who are in the backbone or delivering all these technology enablers. Are there some positions that you have brought on board which purely handles, whether it's data analytics or artificial intelligence officer or any of that sort? It would be interesting to hear your thoughts on what is needed in a company like AMAN.
It's a very good question. I obviously, when we took the brand over, there was I still was in certain hotels on the manual reporting level, correct? So just imagine in 5 years I had to really make quantum leaps, correct? In order to get into an environment where today I'm on par with many of the operators out there, correct? From, as I said, the cloud environment around my finances, about the business intelligence platform where I can every day look at the pace, the real life, all the comparisons to budgets, forecasts, whatever you want. All that stuff is happening, correct? In New York, I have obviously more technology in the rooms than I have in 95% of the businesses. I have a little bit of technology in Japan, but really not much. So the one who really leads the technology discussion around guest experiences would be New York. But still, it's not, I wouldn't say I'm leading that conversation. I'm part of the conversation, and I think it will be, addressing what needs to be addressed, but I'm not a technology-driven company. I have not brought anybody to innovate around technology either. As I said, my focus on the technology and the landscape has been all how I'm going to acquire additional people through the digital environment. But I have not brought in anybody in regards of creativity on the IT sector. Did I bring in analysts and all that stuff around BI, business intelligence platform? Yes. But I wouldn't say I have, I'm at the forefront of using IT and innovation to create a competitive advantage today.
Well, thank you very much. And over to you, Abid.
Roland, can you talk a little bit about the sustainability initiatives? I know the general consensus in the industry has been, or the luxury client doesn't really care about quote unquote sustainability, or it's very difficult to introduce the sustainability initiatives in luxury environment. Would you mind sharing some of the things that you have done and your resorts are practicing, please?
Yeah, I mean, operating in the destinations we operate in, it's obviously crucial that we are very, very tight to the community we operate in. Yeah, I mean, that's always been part of the AMAN journey. Last year, also 2020, I did add what's called kaiteki, which is, is the Japanese word around taking care of the planet, your people, and so forth. So I introduced a brand pillar around sustainability. So that's for the first time we really made it formal. We formalized it. And try to bring together all the different initiatives we do have. I mean, from our own gardens to our recycled waste programs to, you know, the tiger reserves, the maintaining tiger reserves up in India. I mean, there's a magnet, you know, we're creating our own olive oils, and all that stuff is happening in the 33 destinations across the brand. And I've now brought it together. We have obviously things we can bring across the brand. I've now also an association around the UNESCO. I'm one of the first or only partners who really are going to embrace UNESCO. Then I have 14 sites near a UNESCO site. So I'm going to major things around UNESCO. We have done incredible work in many, many hotels around community relations, be it having schools we maintain, we sponsor or we work with. You know, I've done in AMAN in Turks and Caicos incredible initiatives around the sea world and how we're going to maintain, you know, the oceans. So there's a magnitude of that on the journey, and it's also part of the experience for the guests. So it's not, you know, exclusive to just look. We get guests involved and they participate in the communities we operate in maintaining and helping those communities to work on sustainability work. We did a project in Amanjena around water wells and so forth. So there is a real focus, but it's only, believe it or not, as a strategy and as a brand pillar, it's only about a year and a half old.
Fair enough. Well, I'm glad that you share that, because obviously your clientele typically is ultra high net worth individuals, and they like what you're doing on the sustainability front, and it is very much a focus, particularly coming out of this pandemic. One more question, Roland, before we bring our next guest in. Most of your portfolio in the birthplace of the brand was obviously in leisure resort destinations. You have transitioned into urban locations. I believe Tokyo was the first, if my memory serves me correctly, in New York. Talk about an urban destination. Walk us through as to what that journey has been like, taking a resort brand with a very strong presence in leisure world coming across to an urban location.
Well, you know, first and foremost, we have a very strong DNA and very well and detailed articulated piece around purpose, values, brand pillars, and then obviously the strategies which we roll out across the functions. So if you look at my brand pillars or my values per se, all those are transferable into cities. So you can still have harmonious design. You can still have incredible you know, we call it a little bit different. You can still have kaiteki, obviously the sustainability. So the brand pillars are transferable into a city. Now, can you do it in every city? No. I think there's a limited amount of cities we will be able to get the right mix together. But I feel quite strongly that in order for me to nurture my Pathfinder spirit and go to the destination I would like to go to, like the Mustangs of the world and some of the remote areas in Africa or South America where I'm not present, I think the city hotels and the returns on the city hotels and the contribution of these city hotels will help us to fuel that growth. But I think what we have delivered in Tokyo, and you look at the brand pillars, as I just highlighted, they are very much able to be converted into a city context. In New York, you will see the same thing. I mean, obviously it's not open yet. Miami, very much all based on the brand pillars, on how we develop the hotel. And Bangkok will be the same, correct? So in the cities where we have an opportunity to get premium rates and have a premium market, I think it makes perfect sense to get in. And as I said, my brand pillars and DNA and purpose are strong enough to be converted into a city context. But the big fear was always that we're going to lose the myth and lose the touch to get into those destinations, which obviously are remote, which are, as I said, one of our values is nurturing our Pathfinder spirit. And I think that it's actually mutually quite beneficial to be able to expand in the cities, and then with those kind of resources being able to put some skin in the game in certain destinations which are not obvious. But yeah, I still have a lot of territory to cover. Obviously 2025 we have a goal to be about 45 to 48 AMANs across the world, and I think by that time we'll get to that tipping point where I think we'll need to be careful that you don't become too big. Hence, that's why we created Janu. Then Janu is scalable really in primary and secondary cities, or resorts for that matter. But AMAN, we relentlessly pursue from design to all the details to the employee engagement. I mean, I have 5 employees per room really in the company. All these details which have been part of the AMAN journey is relentlessly pursued. Then I think that's what makes us different, and that's what creates a competitive advantage. And then you bring in the creativity and the innovation around food and beverage and so forth. And I think we have a formula which we can grow. But yes, there's a limited amount of AMANs I see we can put in across the globe.
Well, thank you, Roland, for that. A brand like AMAN, I have always associated with locales that have just as much mystique as the brand itself, and that adds to the experience. Now, you can argue that New York would have that mystique as well in possibly different ways, but thank you for sharing that. And it's great to hear that your expansion plans are continuing on to cover the globe, particularly in the parts that you're not present in. Please stay with us. We'll have you back in a moment. At this particular point, I would like to bring up Alexander Schneider, who is with Nikki Beach Hotels and Resorts. Alex, thank you for taking the time for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Let me just move a little bit into the center. Yeah, it's a great honor and a pleasure to be here today. Obviously, I feel a little bit as if I'm walking with giants here in the presence of brands like AMAN and Christoph's 25 Hours Hotels. But it also shows that our endeavors over the last 5 or 6 years have not stayed unnoticed. So that makes me even happier to be.
And the possibly one of some of the good things that will come out of this pandemic, the industry has really come together in order to battle this pandemic and prepare ourselves for the recovery. So it doesn't matter whether you've got 10,000 hotels or you got 10 hotels. It's all about the travel and tourism and us being true to welcoming the people and delivering those experiences. Alex, if you wouldn't mind briefly sharing a bit about the start of the brand. I don't know how many people know about it, but it's a great story that turned a tragedy into a wonderful thing. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that, I would really appreciate it.
Yes, with pleasure. A lot of people wonder where the name Nikki Beach is coming from, and so basically we are a family-owned company, and our founder Jack Penrod, he's still very influential for everything that we do, and he has created everything that we are thriving upon today. And he had a daughter whose name was Nicole, who unfortunately passed away in an accident in her early days. And since Nicole was somebody who was extremely lively, a very positive human being, and that brought a lot of joy and laughter into the family, Jack Penrod decided to dedicate back then his food and beverage empire to her and created the brand Nikki Beach, which debuted 20 years or almost now 21 years ago on the Ocean Drive in Miami South Beach. And from here onwards, we have been really growing this legacy without losing touch with the legacy. And I think that makes also the strong, or that explains the strong emotional bonding that we have with our clients worldwide, because there is, you know, this utmost concentration of emotions that we are celebrating. And, you know, I think the part of our brand is that we have a lot of lovers, but at the same time, we have also some people that probably don't follow our brand as much. And I think this is really a part of the success, and 2020 has taught us one more time that if you are a real brand, you need to pick your target group, you need to communicate to your target group, and you really need to understand this target group. There's just no reality that you can please everyone.
So that's a great segue, Alex. Talk a little bit about your core target market. Who is your prototypical guest? Where do these folks reside? Tell us something about the demographics and psychographics of your clients.
I think what you can say about most of our very strong loyalists, they all have an internationally homeless lifestyle. You know, they have probably been inventing remote working before we even knew the name for this. These are people that have obviously, you know, a high amount of disposable income, but they also have traveled the world to a certain extent, and all of them were in pursuit of something new, something that would break the mold of the normal hotel experience. From the demographics, it's really hard to form a certain zone or to include or exclude people. You know, with the 20 years that we have been doing what we're doing, we have now several generations that have become diehard Nikki Beach fans, let it be on the beach club side or on the hotel side. I think what unites all of them is that they are very interesting, sometimes also you know, off the beaten path personalities. I think they all have a lust and a hunger for experiences, and they all would choose probably an experience over the comfort of something that they already know. So there's a high amount of emotional intake, there's a high amount of eagerness to learn new things, and then there's also a high amount to have fun. And I think, quite frankly, this is one of the topics that I feel that hospitality almost forgot about talking. You know, we are there to entertain, and we are there to make people happy. And sometimes when I'm listening to what the bigger brands are doing, I think we have become in certain ways a little bit sterile in our industry. And we as Nikki Beach try to sort of throw a little more color into this and a little more music.
Well, look, your company's heritage started out in entertainment and F&B. In the accommodation component came in a bit later. During the pandemic and coming out of it, how do you think that entertainment component and having that energy with large crowds and people having a grand old time, do you think that would change in any way?
It's hard to say. I like to keep a very positive view on all of this. You know, we are by nature fun-loving creatures. We are social beings, and I think nobody will be able to take this love for being together away from us. Will it change in details? Absolutely. Have we changed it in 2020? Very much so. But have we found a way how you can, you know, ensure the safety of the guest, but at the same time retain the DNA of what we do in a certain way? Yes, we did. And I think that's why we look back at 2020 as almost a very helpful year for us to understand certain things that we sort of knew deep down inside, but we were never able to really put a finger on it, why we did it and how we did it. And 2020 was almost like a filter. You know, we really reduced everything that we did to the core elements, to the core DNA strings of our brand, focused on those. To a certain degree, we also understood that sometimes we were catering to the volume of guests that we thought we had to cater to. 2020 told us and taught us that we might have been overreaching sometimes, and that actually going back to the roots is a very, very helpful way of approaching things.
Well, that's fabulous, Alex. One more question before I hand it over to Sam. Talk a little bit about the food and beverage component in hotels. You brought up earlier that it almost seems like that our industry has forgotten the entertainment component. How can hotels revitalize that component of our experiences? What has, in your opinion, worked very well, and what is it that we need to do differently?
I think there are two ways of approaching this topic. One way is obviously what we did as Nikki Beach, and then the other component is what should hospitality as an industry rethink. We come from food and beverage, and we celebrate lunches and dinners and aperitifs, with every fiber of our body and with every fiber of our mind. And we obviously saw in 2020, similar to what Roland said earlier, that if you have been a good neighbor in your ecosystems where you operate, 2020 held actually a lot of interesting benefits for you, because there you could really see how much does your local clientele accept you, how much do they love you, because people couldn't travel. So we basically were in certain areas limited to everybody that was living in proximity to our resorts and to our beach clubs. And it was a very, very rewarding experience for us, because we did extremely well, and we had to obviously reduce our capacities in order to provide a safe and secure environment for our guests. But it went so well that we had actually capacity problems in certain locations. So I think this really shows that the food and beverage approach, together with obviously a certain bit of entertainment. And entertainment, I think a lot of people misunderstand what it is. Entertainment is not somebody on a stage with a microphone. Entertainment is a curated space where you as a guest can experience on a 360-degree emotional level different things. Food is entertainment. A chef that comes to your table and prepares a dish tableside, that is entertainment. Decoration is entertainment. Having selected brands that we like to cooperate with, doing ad hoc fashion shows during a lunch, that is entertainment. So it's really not about the foam cannon or the DJ or the go-go dancers. I think subtlety is really in entertainment one of the things that a lot of people don't understand. They always think louder, bigger is better. And that actually is something that, our target group sees in a completely different way. What I think about our industry is general, I think we should also stop calling ourselves the lodging industry, right? We have been reducing ourselves in many ways to an industry that is focusing on renting out rooms. When you go back to the olden days and to the very turn of the century travel, every hospitality experience would start with a meal, and then you would go to your room, and then you would rest. But the hospitality industry has always started with something very different than your room. And I think, just taking this in and mulling it over a little bit already gives a lot of benefit.
Well, thank you. That was very insightful, and it's interesting that you bring up the inception of our business was indeed from meals and pubs and where you might have taken your horse-drawn carriage, or you rode on a horseback to go and have a drink on your journey, and soon thereafter the sleeping accommodations were provided. So thank you for that. As the business has evolved and more institutional investors are involved in it, they look for return. So that continues to put different pressures on our industry. But thanks for sharing that. Sam, over to you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I left Dubai before you truly opened. I lived in Dubai also for some time, and I missed the opening. But I've been watching how you are evolving, and I'm quite interested. You seem to be, at least it used to be centered into, at least in Europe and around the Mediterranean. But I understand that you also are moving a little bit further out. And my question is, what and where are the emerging trends and markets that interest you for your brand?
As I said earlier, there is really no final frontier for the brand when it comes to location. We have seen in the last year and again in 2020 what our loyal clients are willing to do to reach us. The amount of private aviation that we had to handle this year, the amount of yachts that we had to provide and to book for our guests in order to reach us through any means has been staggering. And I think this will probably also be a trend that needs to be watched. We like to go to places where we can make a difference. We like to also bring the energy of our brand into places where the energy or when energy levels have been low. I would like to use our opening in Santorini as a very good example. Obviously, Mykonos for Nikki Beach would be the most logical choice. However, we felt that us arriving in Santorini would make a big difference, not only for us and our investor, but for the entire infrastructure and tourism infrastructure of the island. And this is exactly what happened. We broke the mold of the old honeymoon island where everybody stays 1.8 nights and then just moves on to the next island. We created the first resort that became a haven for lifestyle seekers, for people who wanted to have really a wholesome resort experience for a week and that wanted to experience everything from Santorini and not only 2 sunsets and a little bit of fava beans. So I think there are many places in the world where we want to go. Our pipeline is very, very healthy. But at the same time, we don't have preset targets on how fast we want to grow. For us, it is absolutely important that we work with people that understand the brand, how we work, and that share also the emotional intake of what we do. Because when you look at our P&Ls, they are extremely interesting for all of our investors, and they usually make sense from year one onwards. But due to our high F&B component that we're always providing, most of our resorts have 50% in rooms and 50% in F&B. All of the typical CBRE or HVS standard charts don't really apply for us. So, for us, this is always a very good filter mechanism when we're talking with potential investors and owners, whether they really understand what we do. Because I think what has really impacted a lot of formerly nice brands around the world is that they lost in pursuit of expansion a little bit their soul. And we are very mindful that this has happened to many and that it could happen to us. And, sometimes saying no is also a very, very valuable answer.
Very good. I had one of the viewers, and he want to know, how do you see the opportunities with well-being or maybe wellness, or how do you, that component in your hotels and maybe the beach clubs?
First of all, I think well-being has, how can I say, a lot of different approaches. Exhausting yourself is also part of your well-being. Let it be on the cross trainer or let it be over a very long lunch. Do I think that lifestyles will move into more both sides of the extremes? Yes. You know, we sleep less, we work more, but at the same time, we go more often to the spa, we do intermittent fasting, we take more little pills here and there to stay healthy and younger. And this, I always call it the retox and detox, or detox and retox trend, is definitely something that is very important to our business model. We have the Nikki Spa brand has been rolled out internationally. We do amazing returns in all of our hotels, but we are also mindful that that one always will come with the other. Most of the people, want to sleep in order to have a longer day. People want to have a massage in order to be fitter for the next experience. So that's why we will always play on both ends of the energy scale, from the very introvert moments that every person has. Mornings are, I think, universally introvert times. And then we also play on the very extrovert times. These are the times when people want to dance on the table. And I think as a good host, when you understand this cycle of energy and you place your products and your services around this, then you will have a very well-functioning offer.
Yeah, very good. Now, people tend to highlight things that how the people's minds have changed, the pre-pandemic and now the current pandemic, and then how is that going to be after that? Do you see, is that going to change where that the kind of a meaningful experiences and that you are providing for the clients, are they going to expect something else or something more than you have provided already, because you are providing some great entertainment, great food, a lot of fun, music and so on? Is there something else, or is it just a different color or of that component that you're providing because of how people's mind may have affected during the pandemic?
Yeah, I just read the other day a very interesting article in Condé Nast Traveler that was highlighting exactly that question. How will we finally move away from the pastel colors and this very, let's say, almost universally synchronized color pattern that we see? Will things change? Yes, but do I think it's a revolution? Probably not. I think it's going to be an evolution. And it is going to be up to us really also to enhance that evolution. We don't want to continue what we did the last 20 years. We want to become better at everything that we do. I think one of the aspects that is not talked about often enough and aggressively enough is taking care of talent, because this pandemic has washed out a lot of fantastic people due to measures that were necessary. Nikki Beach, we were lucky that these measures were almost intangible for us, but I am mindful that there are a lot of amazing people who are currently looking in our industry for jobs. And I think at the end of the day, when you consult the TripAdvisors or any sort of review tool, and you look at the highest and the lowest rankings, you will always see a human component in it. And as much as we have also forcefully driven our digitalization as a company, our focus for talent was probably, especially last year, stronger than ever. Protecting the people that make our business. We have relationships between clients and talent in our company that goes so deep. And I am mindful that if I'm losing some of these incredible talents, that my business is not going to be the same anymore. And I think as hospitality lovers, and all of us fell in love with this work at some point. I think we all know how important it is to have motivated, talented people, and we all know how tough it is to attract these people today, right? So I think in all of this, I wish that we will have a renaissance of celebrating our talent and looking after them.
Well, let me just then make a quick question then. when you're looking for new talent, for example, what is in their eyes or what is in their attitude that you're looking for that would attract you to, hey, this is a person that we would like to bring on board to our company?
I personally love misfits. Everybody that is not willing to fit into the mold. Because I think these are the people that carry a great additional value. I think when you look at, and I've been working for some of the brands, as you said earlier, when I look at the evolution of these HR manuals, and you look at them, and it goes from grooming guidelines to what we say and what we don't say, and so on and so forth. And my question is, how can you keep individual service really alive if you're standardizing your talent? So what I am looking at is people that don't want to fit in, you know, people that bring this incredible emotional quality for what they do. When you look at chefs, you know, chefs are not on the forefront, so they can retain their craziness a little better, right? But I want to have that same craziness also on the floor. I want to have it as such. You know, I want to have people that have no fear, you know, and people that, if I would give them a 200-page manual on what they can and cannot do, I want the people that resign on the day that I give them that manual.
Very good. Well, thank you, Alexander, for those, and I will pass back to Abid.
Alex, a couple of very short questions before I bring our next guest in. As a matter of fact, there was a question relative to talent. If you don't mind, I'll ask here. Simon Janelle had asked, what is your key advice to young hospitality professionals starting off their career to be successful in the future? Any thoughts on that?
See, I believe every person has a superpower. You know, there is something that anybody is uniquely good at. And I think, especially through social media, especially through, you know, the certain times that we're living in, a lot of people tend to go for certain goals that they find extremely aspirational, admirable. And a lot of people take the talents that they have for granted and say, this is easy, I don't want to do this, you know? And I would always give the advice, look for your own superpower and nourish that. There is something in you that is absolutely unique, and focus on that, and whatever you do, concentrate it around this. To waste your time and your energy on something that you're not talented in order to, you know, meet the expectation of the market, is going to be painful, and you might not ever be one of the best, right? So don't listen to people that tell you what you should do. Listen to yourself and look in the mirror and ask yourself, okay, what is my superpower? What am I fantastic? When you found this and you go for it, I don't think that anybody can stop you.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for that, Alex. Please stay with us. We're running a little over. I'm going to bring in Christoph Hoffman with 24 Hour Hotel at this particular point. Christoph, thanks for taking the time and being with us.
Thank you for having me as well. Very proud what Alex said about me in comparison to Nikki Beach and AMAN. It was good to listen to what Roland and Alex said so far.
So, Christoph, if you don't mind, tell us a bit about the founder's vision, if you would. When you started the brand, what were you thinking about delivering to the customers that did not exist in the marketplace?
It's quite a while ago, and I'm trying to remember what happened back then when I formed that company together with my 3 partners. I worked most of my life in hospitality. I was not an entrepreneur before. I think one of my motivations to start 25 Hours was to be an entrepreneur, to become an entrepreneur, and not to work for other people anymore, trying to fulfill my own vision of hotels. So there was not really a strategy behind when we started. we had that brand already in hand, the name of 25 Hours. Kai, one of my partners, created the first 25 Hours in Hamburg. And when I got the chance to develop, to create additional hotels, the second one was based in Frankfurt. I was not really. I was trying to, first of all, I was trying to find the right people next to me with whom I could, get inspiration, trying to become creative. Number one, and number two, the other thing which I was really trying to put into our brand and product was the fascination about the beautiful grand hotels, the beautiful legendary hotels which exist since sometimes centuries or decades, because I always was under the impression that hotels have to have a meaning, have to have a content, and that's why we started to steal a lot of beautiful ideas, mostly actually from the luxury hospitality industry, and we were more about trying to create something which we loved than something where we said we need to cater to a particular target audience or to a particular market. I think the driver in the very beginning and up until today was how can we make really nice hotels which we are proud of ourselves.
So, Christoph, if you wouldn't mind sharing some successes and some setbacks through this journey of launching a brand and founding this new company, would you mind sharing some of these successes and setbacks for the budding entrepreneurs that might want to follow your footsteps?
Yeah, of course. I when we started 25 Hours, we had a few basic ideas of how we want to grow. First of all, we said we don't want to grow with money which we don't own. We want to grow organically. So the first property we had, the one in Frankfurt, owned by one of my shareholding partners, we made a lease agreement. And I've learned how to do lease agreements. I didn't have much experience back then on that, but I slowly but surely, and we also said, well, we have a great idea, we have a great story behind. Let's try to convince people to believe in us when we go and have some negotiations with developers at certain fairs, and what you do in order to find projects. And in the very beginning, I was a bit naive on what was going on the market. We were a small company. We didn't have a track record. We didn't really know. We couldn't really explain to them what we wanted to, because everything we've done grew out of a mood and organically. So in the very beginning, I went to the different fairs, to Expo Real, to the one in Cannes, and I realized more and more that my naivety about negotiating with developers about leases and not giving any bank guarantees and trying to get a turnkey lease agreement with lots of pre-opening budgets and things like that was not so easy. So in the very beginning, when we started, it took me quite a while to find the right projects and to go into the market. And we had a lot of setbacks, because if I remember correctly, I think we negotiated, I don't know, maybe 50 projects, and one became reality. So I had to be very, very patient, and I had to believe in our idea. Otherwise, I would not have succeeded on it. We had several setbacks during the course of our growth. We had catastrophes, like one of our hotel was burning down, and lots of things which came up in the whole period of time. But I have to say, we never really had a situation until the pandemic where I didn't believe that we could not be successful in the growth of 25 Hours.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And certainly fast forward to today, a very successful brand. You partnered up with Accor. Accor is creating possibly the largest lifestyle division in hospitality. Tell us what that journey has been like. A small brand being part of a major conglomerate. What has worked? What could be done differently?
Yeah, well, I would like to go back into 2015, 2014, 15. We had our company about 10 years, and I was surprised about our success. And by then we had, I don't know, maybe seven hotels opened. Our main idea was to create hotels with a lot of, individuality behind everything you have mentioned earlier today. We were successful in creating space for people also from the local markets. F&B was a very important factor, and we were in a phase where we realized that we have actually found all the destinations in the areas where we can be success, where we can have access to, where we can succeed creating nice hotels, namely mostly in the German-speaking major cities such as Hamburg, Berlin, Zurich. We've done Vienna by then, and we asked ourselves, like especially myself, how do we want to further grow? Is the brand valuable enough to go abroad, to do something far away? Would it be an opportunity to do something in, let's say, Sydney or in Singapore or in Santiago de Chile? And we all said yes, why not? I mean, it's a brand which is designed was already back then a brand which was ready to go international. But we also realized that our own small way of developing our brand based upon lease agreements, based upon a high level of engagement in every project where we were involved, would not suffice if we want to go into long haul destinations. And just more or less, was it a coincidence? I don't know. More or less at the same time, Sébastien Bazin, back then the new CEO of Accor, went to visit our property in Berlin, which was just about to be finished, and I was around, and I gave him and his colleagues a nice site inspection, and I at least myself, and I think also Sébastien and his colleagues, they loved. We liked each other from the spot, and I think back then already Accor was realizing that the world will change when it comes to brands, when it comes to certain changes which have to be done in hospitality. And Sebastian was very impressed about our property in Berlin, and so we kept in touch. And I had many discussions with my fellow shareholders of how we would, move on with our company. Shall we stay private? Shall we give it to our, daughters and sons and keep it as a family business? Or do we want to go ahead? And we realized more and more that Accor might be the right choice, because this company is such a, like a big company and so different from us that we don't have a lot of, competition in what we were doing. I think back then already we said we can synergize so much of what Accor does great and what we have done as an individual small company in a very, special way. And that's when we decided to go ahead with the offer, which came along from Accor, to collaborate, to sell some of our shares. And that was the start of certainly a new phase of 25 hours. Shortly after we signed the deal and we sold the first 30% of our shares, we had projects on the table such as Dubai, later on, much later on, I have to say, Australia, many other projects where we were in the beginning quite hesitating, because we didn't really know if we can, add value to something in Kuala Lumpur or in Jakarta. But we started with Dubai, and this hotel will open up in a few months. And we've in the meantime, 3 or 4 years later with Accor, I have to say it was a great decision we've made, and we have to see how it moves on.
So, talk a little bit about a boutique environment versus a major company. I give you an example. In U.S., there was a huge movement where microbreweries were being bought out by bigger brewing companies. So, people liked microbreweries. They liked getting to know the folks that were actually involved in brewing it, only to find out that they were being bought out. So there was a huge movement that if the brand was to be bought out by a bigger company, it had to be declared on the label. It's similarly a very small boutique brand, and we talked about the attributes of some of the boutique hotel. What is your thought? How would it evolve? How would it change, survive in a larger environment?
Well, I think, I mean, I'm totally aware, and all the players behind are aware of the fact that there are certain risks involved when it comes to the development, the further development of the brand. Our brand so far was developed by myself and my partner, so it was a very individualistic approach, sometimes even an anarchistic approach. And on the other hand, there's a big company behind, namely Accor, who has a total different approach of growing into the market. And I think it's about an understanding of both parties, and making use as much as possible of the certain areas. And I personally believe very much that if I, as one of the founders, and I'm talking also about Mama Shelter, you may have heard that Mama Shelter will also be part of that new lifestyle organization, such as SBE and a few other very interesting brands. I think it will be very, very important also in the future to 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 make sure that we have kind of even a firewall between too big of a corporation and the individual players behind. So what the idea is right now by the future company, namely Accor and Ennismore, who are getting together, and the founders, is that we are really trying to keep the brand bubbles, trying to really keep the DNA of each brand and each company. And for us, that means that we have to stay on board, in particular, when it comes to two pillars. One is the product. How can we make sure that we stay innovative and even get more innovative on creating products in certain destinations of the world, in a way where we also consider what is going on the market in the future. And second, certainly the culture. How can we really make sure that the culture of our company, which has been created by people behind, stays, doesn't have to stay the same, but it has to evolve in a positive manner. And at the end of the day, I think it's always based upon human beings and on people who are driving the show, and people who understand also the fragile situation when it comes to growing a brand into the whole world.
Well, thank you for that. Hats off to Accor. By all accounts, what I've been hearing is that they truly have lived up to that, and leaving the brand values alone, and some of the personalities behind the brands, they've kept them. So wish you much success moving forward. Let me turn it over to Sam, and I'll be back with you in a moment. Sam.
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned earlier before we went live, is that I've been watching the 24 hours. I'm quite fascinated of how you have developed a brand and been growing in a very interesting way. So my question is that what is the red thread which is common for each hotel? Because I understand each hotel is a little bit different. So is there a red thread that you can, or the common denominator for all the hotels?
Well, I could say now that the red thread or the common denominator is that we don't want to have that common denominator. It's not entirely true. There are things which you will find in each and every space or in every hotel which we have created. But really, when we start creating a new hotel, we are very much into we have one wonderful project, for example, in Florence right now, in Copenhagen, Dubai, I mentioned before. We always want to start all over again. We want to be totally um, not influenced by what we have done in the past. So before I come back to the red thread and the common denominator, I want to explain that a little bit more, because that is also something which is not easy when it comes to growth and when it comes to the speed of growth, because we, on the one hand, we really believe that every product has to be really different. Every product has to surprise the 25 hours audience, if there is one, the fans of 25 hours who love to go to Hamburg. If they go to Florence, they want to be surprised. And in particular, we want to create hotels with people who we find on our way, with whom we can collaborate in the different areas. We want to create something which is radically local. And that means hopefully that if you have, if you go to different 25 hours hotels, you always have a complete new experience. However, after we have created a few properties, we realized that we want to have a certain common denominator. And that common denominator to me lies in a few things where people want to know that it is there when you come to a 25 hours. One is F&B. We want to always give a very special experience when it comes to our F&B services. So one thing is we try to create really, really special bars, which are locally grounded, which are not hotel bars, but rather bars in hotels. Take Monkey Bar in Berlin, or take the Boilerman Bar in Hamburg, or the upcoming Dolce Amaro Bar in France. We always try to create something where locals love to go. Same applies to the restaurants we have. We always said to ourselves, we hate hotel restaurants. We hate breakfast rooms. We want to have F&B spaces in our hotels which are totally independent to the hotel operation. In an ideal world, if you enter one of our spaces, one of our hotels, you go into the restaurant and you don't even realize that you have a hotel above or below. When you come to Berlin, the rooms are below, or when you come to Cologne. And that's why we started to collaborate in an early phase with people who have their own philosophy about gastronomy. Take Haya Molcho, our Israeli concept from Tel Aviv. Haya Molcho, who I met in Vienna when I started to create our Viennese property. We have a great Sicilian friend, Corrado Falco, with whom we have created a brand called Ribelli. So we are trying to really, really adapt to the market and stay also open-minded to things which come up in the future when it comes to the market, to the experience in our hotels. The other thing, obviously and certainly, and that's what we developed over the course of time, is the company culture and the people within our hotels. And I was really surprised to see how well it worked, even though we have now 12 hotels in all different destinations far away from each other, that this 25 hours spirit stays alive. So when you come into a hotel, let's say you come to Berlin and then you travel to Vienna or to Zurich, you will in an ideal world, everybody makes mistakes, but in an ideal world, you will find people who run the hotel from the front desk all the way over F&B to the general manager, who have multiplied the idea of the 25-hour spirit. And that to me is the most precious thing, really. And I'm really proud to see how it worked, because, today I'm not able, and also the head office and the management team, we are not really able to control all those things. Alex mentioned something about policies and procedures earlier. I'm a strong believer that those policies and procedures, as they have been, used in the past, are not about the future. It's something where you have to create a corporate culture based upon trust, and about also the confidentiality of having people who understand how to evolve the idea of 25 hours. And that worked pretty well. And I hope when you come to one of our places to more than one of our places, that you have that experience of that common denominator of having people who love to be with you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I really liked what you said about what you call the 25-hour spirit. And Before we announced the show, I have been discussing with different hotel schools, one in Paul Bocuse Institute in Lyon, and last night at the Washington State Carson Business School, and I told them I'm going to have a chat with some great hoteliers here. And of course, the obvious question was that, I should ask, and particularly you, Christoph, what do you look for when you recruit a new employee? Because they want to know, after they graduate from hotel school, what are the things that you are looking for when you are bringing new leadership to your company, and since you are in the growth mode?
When we started 25 hours, I was under the impression that it would be the perfect thing to approach, in particular, people who have experience in luxury hospitality, because I explained about the link, the idea between, my idea that 25 hours has a lot of things in common with what you experience when you go to a, Bad Rutz Palace, or if you go to a beautiful old, wonderful hotel in Rome or elsewhere in Switzerland. But I realized over the course of time that it's not so much about the pure education. It's about people who bring the passion to be in that industry. And I'm a little older by now, and I met a lot of people, and I have to say, it doesn't take long until you understand if people are passionate about something. And of course, you cannot, with 1,000 employees, you cannot have only passionate people all over the place. But if you have a fairly large amount of people who are really, really crazy about what they do, and they can drag along so many other people. So I think if you have those colleagues who drive it by being really crazy about hospitality and being crazy about serving people, that's one of the first things. You have to be passionate about helping people, assisting people. So why not looking into other areas of businesses where people are also very enthusiastic about supporting people, about helping people, trying to understand how good it is for yourself to help people and to be around for somebody else, and how satisfying it can be. So by now I would say, don't look only in hospitality when you want to have the right people. Look in all different sorts of businesses where employees, people are about supporting, helping, assisting people. And if you want to do this, I think you can really add a lot of value in hospitality.
Yeah. Well, there are among our viewers. There are also, I'm sure, there are hoteliers that are what we call between assignments, and of course, because of the pandemic, may have our furloughs, and they are actively looking around for the next opportunity. So when you are, for instance, for your brand looking for the leadership, do you bring from within, or do you also look at from the outside your company to bring your general manager to a property? What is your strategy for that?
It's a mix of both. Of course, we love to have fresh input from people all over the world. And you also have to consider, let's say, let's take Florence as an example. It's going to be a 170 rooms property. We will open it in the summer of this year, hopefully, late summer. It's in a very central location, and we don't have any experience on the Italian market. So how do we deal with that? And of course, we need people who know the market, who speak the language, who understand the culture. But in an ideal world, we would like to mix and mingle those people who we hopefully find in the next couple of months with people from 25 Hours who have been there for a long time, or even people who haven't been there for a long time. I strongly believe that apprentices, we have that system in Germany and in Switzerland and also in Austria, where you can do an apprenticeship in a hotel for 2 or 3 years, and you go through all the different departments, you go to school at the same time. I believe it's a very good system. And those young people are sometimes so passionate and so curious and so crazy about staying on board with 25 hours, that I believe they can add as much value as a very well experienced a person who has been with us for 10 years. So I think the mix makes it. And again, it's also the trust we want to put into people. So I think you need to, mix and mingle and start all over again every time you do a new hotel.
Yeah. I have a question, my final question before I hand over to Abid is from Hani Menesi. What is your plan for Middle East expansion post-COVID? I understand you have Dubai coming. Any other thoughts on this?
Well, of course. I mean, having a hotel in Dubai, and we're very excited about it. It's our first franchise management agreement, our first property, which will open together with Accor. So it's an interesting experience, and it's not an owned or leased property. So we have to stay very closely with the owners of the property, and the owners are very well connected in the Middle East and in the Emirates. And yes, I mean, having a hotel in such a great location, we're very close to DIFC, just opposite of Emirates Tower, 434 rooms. We will have a large variety of different F&B concepts. We will be, I think we will be, the brand 25 Hours will be very much present on the market. And therefore, we hope and believe that we can have a lot of other opportunities in the Middle East. We would love to do something more in Dubai. My ideal scenario would be to have a second hotel by the beach, so that we can combine corporate and leisure even more. Even though we mix also now already corporate and leisure. We don't want to be a pure corporate hotel if we do something in Dubai or other places. But you have to also consider that Dubai is the gateway for Asia and for the Pacific. So I think our brand will become much more aware also in destinations even further away. Take Singapore. And I haven't mentioned that we already have signed 2 deals in Melbourne and in Sydney. So slowly but surely we will be more known also in the Asian market.
Yes. Well, your location in Dubai, from the sound of it, is an excellent location for your first hotel. So congratulations on that. So let me hand over now back to Abid.
Sam, if you don't mind, let's bring everybody back together. But I'm going to continue my conversation with Christoph here a little bit. We are running over. So Christoph, if you were to look at our industry moving forward beyond the pandemic, what do you think will be different about it?
I can only speak for ourselves. The industry is so large and the world is so large that I think it's a little bit too easy to come with one idea where the market goes to. I strongly believe that what we have done over the last 15 years, and I'm talking hopefully also for AMAN and Nikki Beach, namely the to create a very special experience and a high level of individuality and products with a certain meaning. I think that will become more and more important. I don't think that hotels, sleeping machines, the big ones, which were catered for conferences and big fairs in cities which don't have a soul and character, I don't think that they will survive on a long term. I think the world is changing also when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to climate change, to all the things which are layers which come together more and more. I think people will become much more conscious about traveling, and if they travel, they don't want to waste time with shitty products. So I strongly believe that we have to focus more and more in the future also on creating very special products. I also believe, many people talk about it and it's nothing new, but I strongly believe that if we really focus on the local market when we do a new hotel in certain destinations, that radical local approach of creating spaces for locals is is going to be a successful part of the future. I know it's not easy, and a lot of people talk about it. And what does it mean at the end of the day to create a radically local product? But to me, it's the future. I give you one example, and we only did it because of, like we've been so devastated by the pandemic that we came up with new ideas, and it was based upon a coincidence. We have two properties in Zurich. One is in Zurich West, and I have to say it's going to be one of our properties which will have problems for the time being, because Zurich will also change, and we are not super centrally located in that property. But I found a guy, a super interesting, very innovative guy, who created, or his grandfather created, the biggest garden center in Switzerland outside of Zurich. And he explained to me his problems about being not in a urban location. And his aim was to create a outlet of his garden center in the center of Zurich. Normally it's impossible because it's far too expensive. You don't have parking space. People don't understand. I said, well, let's get ourselves together and let's use our lobby, let's use our restaurant, let's use our space of our hotel to create an urban garden center in the midst of Zurich. So this will open up in a few weeks. I have no idea if it's going to work out, but I love the idea of creating something which is not a pure hotel lobby anymore, but which is an experience which, puts in different ideas together. You can have a pizza in our Ribelli restaurant, and you sit next to a beautiful plant which you can take along, or you can get it delivered, and you create a certain experience, and you bring in the local market with the hotel guest. And that to me is just one example of many, many examples where hotels can change a lot by creating spaces which are catered for the local crowd.
Well, thank you for that, and I think that holds even more weight when it comes to restaurants and food and beverage facilities, because even the visitors want to socialize with the locals. So thank you for sharing that. Alex, a question for you. You used the term of lifestyle throughout your conversation. What does that really mean? I must tell you, I'm a bit biased to it because nobody in the industry, nor does the clients know what that really means. So could you share with us your definition of lifestyle?
Yeah, first of all, I fully agree with you, Abbott. It's probably the most overused and overstretched term in today's hospitality scene. It's a little difficult if your brand was probably one of the first ones to define lifestyle, not to use it anymore. So sometimes I'm migrating back into this term. But I think, in its original sense, it was really the creation of a positively discriminating product. It's the creation of a product that attracts a certain target group, and that also is not liked by other target groups. That you provide a certain style, that you provide a certain tone of voice in how you do things, that would be a cut above or aside from the rest. And I think that's where lifestyle hospitality really started. It as the name says, it is catering, or it is designed to the style of somebody's personal life. So it's highly personal, it's highly emotional, but obviously it's a little bit with the term sustainability in hospitality, right? These are these trends that are getting globally picked up, and people think it's a nice hit word, and hence it just goes through an inflation process. But to answer your question, it is about creating a product that is so personal that it fits to the lifestyle of an individual.
Well, fair enough. I mean, it's sort of like, as the wise man had said, I don't know how to define pornography, but I know when I see it. So maybe that applies to lifestyle as well. Roland, a question for you,
Yeah.
and this is again a controversial thing. A boutique hotel, it's been used to death, and quite candidly, there are some hotels that are much larger facilities, and yet they want to use boutique. Tell us what your definition of boutique hotel is and the advantages of boutique environment versus a mass distribution.
I don't know. I haven't used that for years, so you're the wrong one to ask. Boutique, small, individualized, personalized, focused, very clear DNA, potentially, obviously, very experiential, kind of focused propositions. I think it kind of left the building, boutique hotels, though, I have to say.
Well, I'm for once very happy that it has. I think the lifestyle component came in as a subset of boutique.
The question is, Abi, but the question is experiential. That's my big thing. I mean, we invented experiential stuff 30 years ago. Everybody's using experiential. So I would like to know from some of the brands out there, what is experiential in some of these brands, if and that's what I'm always wrestling with when I'm having this discussion, not particularly today, then I think today is very clear. But I've been on stages with people who own 23 brands and talk about experiential. I'm always kind of say, all right, so what is really the essence? What you're referring to experiential, hotels or experiences and so forth. So it's kind of that I think today, that's the next big thing everybody uses. Then the wellness thing everybody uses. I mean, everybody who gives a treatment today has a wellness pillar. So it's quite
I think it'll be a great thing, and maybe I'll do it on our platform. I will crowdsource the definition of experiential or lifestyle and see what responses we get back, because these terms, the marketing gurus get hold of it, and then everybody starts to use it. It really loses its the core meaning. But thank you for sharing that. Gentlemen, I think we've kept you way too long. We've run over. Let me ask Sam if there are any questions, because quite candidly, I've got a lot of other questions, but in fairness to your time and respect to your time, I'll hold those questions for next session. Sam, anything from you?
Well, I think we have touched on the questions that came from the viewers, and also there are a few more questions. But I think that we have kept all the viewers on this show. They haven't left us from the moment we started, so it shows that it has been a very interesting and engaging discussion. So I really a special thank you to Christoph, Alexander, and so on, that you have taken the time, and your input has been very, very outstanding.
So my personal gratitude to all of you, Christoph Hoffman with 25-hour Hotel, Alexander Fasel, Alexander Schneider with Nikki Beach, and Roland Fasel. We might have made a typo, and we've given you the same last name. Our apologies. So thank you for staying with us. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. And we liked you so much that we all giving you the same last name. So glad to have you with us. Would love to have you back again, because this conversation, I still have a lot of questions, and it was very engaging. But thanks for being with us, Sam.
Yes, I'd like to thank all the live viewers, and of course the replay viewers who will be watching this on YouTube. But also, since we're on a podcast, we will be commenting in answering your comments when you're listening to our podcast. So again, thank you very much for joining us, and a really great appreciation to our panel who has taken the time to join us, and looking forward to seeing again the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.